So is a zero disengagement drive home possible on FSD beta 10.5? Let's watch and find out. Hey guys, so we're going to see how well the car functions now in the afternoon time and see if it can actually get me home. I've started the navigation on autopilot and the full self-driving. Looks like we got a green light. Car proceeded nicely forward. And should handle this turn pretty well. Maybe a little bit wide on the turn. Slowed us down to recover and then put itself back in the proper part of the lane. This seems to be doing pretty well. The one thing I noticed about this on-ramp here is that it sets the speed at 32, and so I'm assuming that it's saying the on-ramp has a speed limit of 30. It takes a little bit before it's going to kick up to show me a speed limit of 60, which then I can tap and then get up to 63 miles an hour, which is the speed we should be traveling here on the freeway. I do have it set to be 5% over the speed limit. And we'll see how we go here. Sometimes it does want to take this right-hand lane. Sometimes it stays straight, and we'll see what happens. It looks like we're going to stay straight in the middle lane. Slows down just a little bit, I believe, for that truck that it saw. Not exactly sure why it slowed down like that. Car should be switching over to the highway stack here, which it does. It's going to try to merge in behind this van here, and let's see how well it does. Does slow down, and van is going awfully slow for the freeway at 45 miles an hour. Car does move over. Let's see if the car moves over one more time or not. Looks like we're still under 49. I might give it a little bit of a nudge to go left if this van does not pick up its speed. And I'm clear. Once this car passes, I should be pretty clear. And going 55. I'm going to leave it alone and let the car decide what it wants to do. One thing I wanted to talk about on this drive was about charging and cost of charging. And so I'll let the car move over here to the left. It might not go because there's a car, but it looks like it went. That car slowed down. We should accelerate nicely past this driver. Wants to go again. We'll let it go to see what it does. And so I reset this on my drive into work. It looks like since my reset we've gone 21.8 miles, and it's used about 6 kilowatts. And so far I get charging 11 cents a kilowatt. So if you don't take into account charging losses, we're right around 66 cents to go 22 miles. And we'll see what the total is round trip to get home. It should be closer to about 40 miles. The car now wants to move out of the passing lane and move back into the lane that we were in. And we'll let it do that. The watts per mile on my car is a little bit higher. We're at 295. This is the Model 3 Performance version, and so with the different tires and I believe the way the algorithm is set for acceleration, we seem to be on the higher side of the watts per mile than say a standard range. Usually that number is in the low 200s, but my lifetime average hovers right around 295. I think it's 297 for my lifetime average there. So far since we've come on, when I started coming out of the parking garage, I turned on full self-driving. I have had zero intervention. I have let the vehicle decide when it wants to change lanes or not and merge. The freeway stack here for autopilot, or navigate on autopilot, has been pretty strong for a good 9 to 12 months, and so I don't anticipate any problems here. The one thing I have noticed is once I switched to full self-driving beta is I believe it took away the ultrasonic sensors, and I believe it is on vision only. That has required the use of the windshield wipers, so the car will automatically turn on the windshield wipers to clear the screen. Prior to that, even with poor conditions, the windshield wipers did not go on, and I actually had no no times where I was unable to navigate on autopilot because of rain or weather. What I've noticed with this vision only is that it will lock me out of navigate on autopilot and full self-driving, and it seems to be doing it a little more frequent. This weather apparently seems pretty good right now, and we have full access to the navigate on autopilot and full self-driving. We'll see if that changes and whether the weather changes as I get closer to home. One thing that I was worried about when I switched over to Tesla, I remember at the time that I was debating going to full electric, was, well, right now it took me 5 to 8 minutes to fill up at a gas station, and so when I would drive to work back and forth, every 3 trips or so, I would have to stop at the gas station and fill up, and so on average I was, spending maybe 8 minutes a week at the gas station, and I was thinking to myself, well, if I have to supercharge, then it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes. That's going to add up. If I have to do that every week, that's going to add up to many hours, if not days of time in a supercharger. And that was one of my hesitations about switching to the full electric. I am lucky enough that the house that I live in has a garage, and actually when they built the house, they had installed a 240-volt outlet in the garage, and that was being used, I believe, for the dryers in the house when they were building to dry the wood. And so they left that and left it attached. And so when I bought my car back in 2019, it came with the appropriate adapter that I was able just to take the charging adapter that came with the car, plug it in the wall, and then plug it into my car. Initially, I was going to buy a Tesla wall connector, I believe it's what it's called, or wall charger, Tesla wall charger, but I realized that I did not need to do that. And what I've also noticed, since having the car for over 2 years, 2.5 years now, is that I have only been to the supercharger twice. And that was when I depleted the battery down to 3%. Otherwise, all my charging happens at home. And so I have about a 20-mile commute each way, so 40 miles round trip. I will usually charge to either 80 or 90%, and then I will drive 3 trips to work, and usually on the 3rd or 4th trip I will plug in, and usually within 6 to 7 hours it's gone from whatever state of charge I'm at up to 80 to 90%, and by the next morning that I'm ready to leave, or next afternoon that I'm ready to leave, the car is fully charged. Had one little heavier braking there. I'm not sure what it saw. It did slow down a little bit. No cars behind me. There was cars to my left and right, but no cars behind me. And then it seemed to recover nicely and increase in speed. There was a car off to the right on the shoulder, and there was cars on my left and right, so I'm not sure if maybe it was anticipating a car cutting us off, and that's why it's slow. Car should be changing lanes up to the left here. This lane is going to end and merge into the left lane. There's 2 carpool lanes right now on the left that will become 1 carpool lane. So pretty soon we should see it pop up changing lanes to follow route. There we go, lane change, changing lines into faster lanes. So this one was a little sooner than normal. There was a BMW that we had passed on the left that was traveling this lane that was going a little bit slower, and so perfectly appropriate lane change. It should stay in this lane. That right lane is going to merge into this lane and also turn off to the right. And so we should be able to stay in this lane and travel into our exit. On average got me around 26 miles per gallon, and so in this case we've driven 29 miles, and we've used 8 kilowatts. And so with my prior car, that would have been somewhere around $3 to go that 28 miles. With this car, we've used 8 kilowatts, and I pay 11 cents a kilowatt, and so 88 cents is what it's cost so far. So about a quarter to a third the cost, if you take into account that there is probably some inefficiency in the charging, and it takes more than 1 kilowatt to charge 1 kilowatt, then you can round that up to say $1, and so overall still cheaper than paying for gasoline. And so far, it looks like we're doing really well with the zero intervention drive. It says it wants to change lanes. There is a car there. There's a car merging on here. It actually can stay in this lane, but it's going to go ahead and move over, which is safe to do. Should hopefully accelerate up to 63 to match the speed of these vehicles. But also what's going to happen is it's going to change back over to the right. And so if you were following me, there was a Mercedes off here to the left. It does seem a little bit weird that I went across and then came back over, so I could see how that could be annoying or questionable maneuver to the car behind me. I'll go ahead and give a wave just to say sorry. They did not look over, so I don't think they cared enough. And so coming up here will be our exit. Should be changing lanes, one lane over to the right. And I've noticed it does it about a mile before the exit, and so we'll see what it decides to do today. We are clear to go right if we need to. There's a white truck, I believe it's a Toyota, in the lane one to the right to me. About same speed that we're going. He's now merging over into our lane with one white car behind us, with Ford behind us. And so at any point this car can move over to the right, which it decides to do. And it's about a mile to the exit. And nice smooth lane change, went over. That Toyota that was behind us is going to go ahead and pass us here on the left, and then slow down behind the Mercedes. Looks like he changed lanes to pass the Mercedes. So overall, so far, very smooth drive. Set the autopilot and full self-driving right when we came out of the parking lot. It looks like that there's cars here on the left are going a little bit slower. Cars reacting appropriately, slowing us down to 55. You can see these arrows here. That's just detecting that that lane is traveling slower than the lane that we're in. It looks like this traffic actually builds up and goes pretty far up here on the 405. Not exactly sure what's going up there. Not sure if it's just holiday traffic or whether or not there's an accident. This is our exit here, though. The car is doing a good job of maintaining a good distance to the car in front. I am set at a following distance of 4. You can see the speed drop down to 55 there. There's a drop to 50, and I believe it even drops to 45. The car usually takes a nice arc into this right lane here. Nice and smooth transition. This is going to be a right-hand turn up here. Again, car usually does a very nice job with it. And so slow down to 15, and then nicely picked up speed there. It should change lanes one over to the left. Unfortunately, what we're going to do is get a braking. Looks like it's going to stay in this lane. Up here there is a signal light that is for emergency vehicles. There used to be a fire station up here to the left, and so that used to be a flashing yellow. They subsequently are moving that fire station and no longer use the light, so they've turned it off. But the car interprets that as a signal light that is out, and so the car usually tries to slow down and come to a stop there. I do override it with a slight press of the gas. Slight press of the accelerator. And so there's the slowdown there. I'll give a light press of the accelerator, and it will go right through there. Moving over into the proper travel lane, as this lane's going to end and force a right-hand turn. So far doing very well. As the light turns yellow, the car slows down for us and is going to come to a stop behind the stop line here. So far very smooth. And so with prior driving, there's a small chance that I would have decided to keep accelerating through that yellow light. Even if I would have done that, if you can see further ahead, you see that that next signal light has a red light, and we would pretty much be in the same spot if we had gone through that yellow light. We would have been stopped up here at this next signal light. And we would have been in the exact same position. It'll be interesting to see whether or not the car decides to move one lane over to the left. We have around a little over 2 miles to our next turn, and it'll be a right-hand turn. That is a turn that it's struggled on in the past, and so we'll see how well it does today. But so far, for those of you keeping track, we do have a pretty much a zero intervention drive. It did make, some lane changes and then change back into the existing lane. But overall, I'd say a safe drive to get me home. So far we are at a total of 9 kilowatts used to go 34.2 miles. That's $1.10. So it does actually seem like we are going to have a zero intervention drive, and was able to drive me home from work. It is a little nerve-wracking. You're hoping that the car doesn't have any problems and doesn't force me to take over. And yeah, I'm rooting for the car, going, come on, you can do it, you can get me home. Now it's interesting because I'm seeing a lot of cars up here, and there's a lot of traffic. I can't quite tell what's going on, but the cars seem to be going left and right, and so I'm almost wondering if there may be an accident up here. We'll go ahead and let the car continue on. I could turn right here to get home, but we'll let the car go straight and we'll see what's going on up here. I want to keep it a true zero intervention drive. And so one thing I have noticed is when the car is stopped at a signal light, you actually don't need to keep your hand on the wheel. You can take your hand off for a second, and it's not going to tell you to apply pressure to the wheel. Though if you're looking down, I believe, at the screen too long, or you're not paying attention to the road, it will beep and tell you to pay attention to the road. Our light should be turning green very shortly here. We'll be able to move forward. And the cars that were slowed up front seem to have cleared, so my suspicion is it's just holiday traffic and there's not actually going to be a car accident up here. nice smooth acceleration up to the speed limit of 47. I do have it set to drive 5% over the posted speed limit. And it'll be an interesting, see that white car that cut across all the lanes of traffic there. Car slowed down just slightly by 1 mile per hour, whereas I believe on prior iterations before full self-driving, that slowing would have been much more pronounced. And so coming up here shortly, we're going to be trying to make that right-hand turn. It has missed this turn in the past, so this seems to be the last spot where I may end up not having a zero intervention drive. But I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that it's going to take that right-hand lane. It seems to do better when there are cars in front and going at a slightly slower speed. It'll take that proper right lane. If this lane is completely clear, a lot of times it'll stay in this lane and kind of travel into the intersection, and then at that point I do take over. We'll know in 0.7 miles, I'm sorry, 0.1 miles, whether or not we're going to have a zero intervention drive. Should take this lane. It's showing the right tentacle over here to the right. It's taken the right turn, and it should take this turn nicely. So we're getting the yellow turning red, so the car does come to a complete stop. Once it realizes that it's safe to go, it does proceed. It is just creeping forward for visibility, sees that it's clear to go, and makes this right-hand turn. And so guys, that is from the parking garage at work until the street that gets me home. And it looks like we have a zero intervention drive. Congratulations, FSD 10.5.